It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join News Director Paul David and News Editor Philip Catalfamo as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics in Yavapai County that affect all our lives. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome back to another episode of Countywide. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. My guest today is Yavapai County School Superintendent Tim Carter. Mr. Carter, welcome into the show. Happy 2021, by the way. We're happy to have you.
Good morning. Happy 21 to you as well.
Well, we're going to be covering a lot of stuff on the show today. We're going to start with this. Along with being our county school superintendent, Mr. Carter sits on the executive board for the Arizona Interscholastic Association. As we know, initially, the winter sports season was canceled, but due to a special session, I guess would be the proper term for that, they reversed their ruling, and now we have winter sports. Mr. Carter, I wanted to just start with that and get kind of your impressions on the decision and the reversal of the decision and where you stand on the final decision today.
Okay, so let's understand your viewers may not be aware of what the Arizona Interscholastic Association actually is. They are the organization in Arizona that regulates high school athletics and activities, and they are created by the member schools. So it is an organization of member schools. It's not a government entity, it's a private entity, but it represents public school districts. That board, exceptionally good board, by the way, has 10 people, and 6 of them are the 6 conference representatives, 1A through 6A. So the very small schools all the way up to the large schools based on student population. And that's how their conferences are set up in their districts, and it's all based on the number of students you have on your campus. So there are 6 representatives there that represent those conferences. So if I'm in a 4A school, I go through my conference representative to explain what I would like them to do, and then that 4A representative on the board should cast that vote on their behalf. There is then a representative of the Arizona School Board Association, one from the Arizona School Administrators Association, one from the Arizona Athletic Administrators Association. So actually that gives the 7th athletic director that's on that group. And then I represent Arizona's accrediting agency. It's called Cognia. People may have known it formally as Advanced Ed. But if you're a high school in Arizona and if you're accredited, more than likely you are accredited by Cognia. That's the group I represent. I'm appointed by their board. Cognia has some very strong views on this whole issue, and their issue is very simple, that the athletic program should be an extension of the classroom. It's a school activity. If it doesn't tie back to the classroom, why are we doing it? And if there are no students in classrooms, and in Arizona, a great majority of our schools right now are all online, they're virtual. Right. The students aren't in school, the teachers are not physically in school for the most part. So why are we then letting students and coaches be involved in activities where they're very closely related to each other?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. So that's one reason. Secondly, if you look at the metrics, I mean, if we're concerned about data and we're concerned about the science, the metrics are red, red, and red. There is no debate about that. Now, people can dismiss that if they want, but those metrics are pretty clear. The Arizona Interscholastic Association has a organization called SMAC. It is basically a medical advisory committee that provides information to the board and recommends to the board on anything dealing with sports medicine, whether it's a concussion or whether it's this type of thing.
Right.
And they said we shouldn't be having athletics right now. It's not safe, it's not healthy. And then it was interesting that the Athletic Trainers Association, who are the people actually on the sidelines with the teams that are actually providing kind of first responder issues if there's an issue, they came out and their board unanimously said we shouldn't be doing this. Well, in my opinion, that was pretty overwhelming information, and so I voted initially to not allow winter sports, and the vote was 5-4. We had a reconsideration of that vote, and the vote changed to 5-4 the other way because one board member that initially had voted to not have winter sports changed his vote to have winter sports.
Yes.
You have to respect that. And so I voted no effectively both times. I still stand by that. Cognia stands by that. But we're going to support the board. The board made a decision, and we move forward with that decision.
I don't want to give any kind of compromising question to you, but I do want to ask. You talk about sports being an extension of the classroom. Obviously, a lot of school districts around the county, not only here in Yavapai, but also Coconino, more specifically Coconino, there's no in-class session going on right now. It's mostly all virtual. I want to ask you this. Why is there such an emphasis and maybe even an exception made for sports compared to the classroom? Because you say it's an extension of the classroom, what we're doing in class should be the same we're doing to sports. If you're not full-time in the classroom, maybe you shouldn't be full-time doing sports, but that's the opposite of where we're at right now. We're at a 20%, almost maybe a little more, maybe a little less capacity of classrooms, but we're going full contact with sports. So where is that exception, and why is that exception made?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head, and I voted against that exception. That's what this vote really was all about. But a majority of the board now has said, no, we're going to continue and have winter sports. There's going to be modifications. They have to wear masks. There are other types of things that they're going to have to do. And I think those were all good modifications of the rule. But in reality, what you said is exactly what we're doing right now.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to, let's do something else. We'll talk a little less about sports here. We've got like a three minutes or so in this first segment. Governing boards, obviously, there are still some openings available. If anybody is interested, you can visit ycesa.com, and I believe you can find all of the governing board openings that are currently available. I know there's one on the Mountain Institute Career and Technology Education District Governing Board. I think I got that right on the first try.
That's very good.
Representing Humboldt Unified School District. COVID, I know, is still very prevalent. It has been difficult filling those positions due to COVID-19?
It has been more difficult to fill governing board seats for probably a variety of reasons. This last year, during our 2020 election cycle, we had 8 seats that were not filled. And I think the most we had ever had before that was either 3 or 4 seats that weren't filled in an election cycle. So there's all sorts of reasons for it. It is a volunteer position. It's not paid. As we know, it's become more and more political for lots and lots of reasons. COVID is a big part of that. We ask boards to do everything from set budgets to establish policies to hire superintendents to do all of those kind of things. And they're caught in the middle of this issue, just like the AIA board was, and it's almost split 50-50. A board member will get a call from a parent saying, don't you dare open that school. And then they will give that board member 6 or 8 very good reasons why they shouldn't. That board member will hang up from that call, and they'll get another call from another parent saying exactly the opposite thing with equally good justification why. And here that board member is now trying to look at data, hearing this side that's almost 50%, hearing this side that's almost 50%, and they're trying to make the very best judgment they can. And so these are tough times. These are very difficult times to be in education and to be governing educational institutions.
Yeah, we've had you on the show a few times, and I don't think I've ever been more happy not to be you than currently, because it is an absolute nightmare. Any of our wonderful school superintendents at the other counties or any of the other principals or teachers, it's just being a teacher right now is a very, very tough job. I kind of want to, I said this to you off air, but it feels like we're taking a square peg and we're trying to force it into a round hole as much as we can. And you said it's a very interesting time with COVID-19, but we still got a lot more to talk about with Superintendent Tim Carter of Yavapai County, and we will continue our conversation with Tim Carter on the other side of this break. Countywide, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
two things we can count on every year.
A new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
The EPA says C&B Construction ranks in the top 1% nationally. C&B Construction invites you to see what energy efficiency and indoor air quality can be. We have won another Department of Energy Innovation Award, and C&B Construction is the only contractor in the country to win 6 consecutive EPA Indoor Air Plus awards. Experience our zero-energy, move-in ready homes at Crossroads at Mingus.
C&B Construction, locally respected, nationally recognized. Find out more at candbhomes.com.
Been hearing about the crazy benefits of CBD? Find out how CBD can help you at Sedona's #1 resource, CBD Sedona. Come in for a free consultation and let our trained medical staff help you find the perfect product for you. Pain relieving salves, full spectrum oils, CBD skincare, bath bombs, and even CBD for your pets. Come on by CBD Sedona today.
Terrifying jobs, high-flying linemen, take 3.
Josh, this is an absolutely terrifying job. Why do you do it?
It's a very demanding job, but very rewarding and exciting.
How much energy are you actually working with up there?
500,000 volts of electricity.
It's definitely not my line of work. Does anything shock you?
Yeah, distracted drivers terrify me.
Hello and welcome back to Countywide. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. We are joined today by Yavapai County School Superintendent Tim Carter. In the first segment, we talked about the AIA, the Arizona Interscholastic Association's decision to reverse their initial decision to cancel the winter sports season. We talked a little bit about governing boards. There are still some openings on some district governing boards, ycesa.com. If you are interested, their phone number is 928-442-5146. Mr. Carter, story came through on AP yesterday that I took a look at that referred to funding towards charter and private schools. I believe it was mostly focused on private schools. Where are we at with private schools and charter schools here in Arizona right now?
Well, people need to realize that you have district schools and you have charter schools. Both of those are public. The district school is operated by a governing board that is elected by voters. The charter school is organized around a charter. When they applied, they had to say, here's what we want our school to look like, here's how it's going to be governed, here are the kinds of programs we're going to have, and once the state approves that charter, then the charter basically gives them their direction. Where districts are pretty much the same from school to school. I mean, there are some differences, but the governance is pretty much the same. Charters are not. I mean, you have 20 different charters, they could be written 20 different ways. Private schools are just that. They're private. They are not subject to government regulation. They are not bound by Title 15 of the Arizona Revised Statute. They are run by a private entity. It may or may not be secular, or it may be involving some kind of a religious group or not. They're all over the board. So what is happening in Arizona, and has been happening for some time now, is the state is very supportive, as am I, of the entire idea of school choice, of giving parents and kids maximum amount of opportunity to pick where they go to school and what kind of programs they're engaged in. Well, the argument around that is, well, who funds it? I went to a private college.
As did I.
And I think we share the same alma mater.
Yes, we do.
And so I paid that bill. I mean, nobody paid that bill for me. The government certainly didn't. I didn't have grants. I had a few scholarships, but I paid a majority of that bill. But today, the state legislature, and specifically the Republican caucus, greatly support taking tax dollars and providing those dollars to parents in a couple of different mechanisms, and the one that you're talking about are what are called STOs, Student Tuition Organizations. And the bill that passed yesterday out of the Senate Finance Committee, 6-4, would actually raise the cap. It would allow them to provide more funding. And that does indeed increase school choice. But for me, my personal view is that we shouldn't be doing that. In my view, that's an unconstitutional thing. Now, the Supreme Court in Arizona doesn't necessarily agree with that, and they've said that as long as it's not a voucher system, as long as it goes to the parent, that's okay. Then it becomes quite a political issue, and the political issue is, should taxpayers be footing the bill for a private purpose? Well, I think many taxpayers that I know of would argue it doesn't matter whether it's a city or a county or a state or the federal government. We shouldn't be using public dollars for a private purpose. Well, that's effectively what's happening. So that is creating significant controversy, and there has been controversy around it for a long time. But the legislature and the governor have continued to move that forward and expand it.
So it seems like I don't want to say that we're moving towards adding more private schools or charter schools, but are we leaning that way, possibly? I mean, I don't want to say that we're going to see the death of public schools, because I think we'll always have public schools, but are we starting to lean more towards the private entities and charter education here in Arizona?
Well, I think an argument can be made that is true. Okay. I know there are people who would argue opposed to that as well, and I get that and I respect it. I think that if you look back at the history of education going back to, say, 1960, 1970, and you look at the progression of what happened, we saw a significant shift in the way parents and students were able to control where their children went to school by open enrollment. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school in Arizona, here was the school you attended. You didn't really have an option other than you could homeschool, or your parents could pay to send you to a private school, or you could pay tuition to a neighboring school district. Today, that doesn't happen. It's open enrollment. If I don't like this school, I simply apply to that school, and unless they're at capacity, and almost none of them are, I can go, and the dollars follow me. In fact, we refer to it in education as backpack funding. And it has opened up the whole universe to parents to pick any school out there that's a public school. So that was a big issue. The creation of charter schools was a big issue. And I have a foot planted firmly in both camps, both district schools and charter schools. We provide services to all those folks. We have a lot more jurisdiction. Well, we virtually have no jurisdiction over charters, but we have a lot more jurisdiction over school districts based on the statute. But the reality is charters are here to stay. They're not going to go away. And they are a public school. And the issue there is the accountability piece. Should charters and districts be held to the same accountability? And there's a great amount of argument that that's not true. They are different. And so sometimes people misunderstand that because they're different, they think that gives an advantage one way or another. If you look at the whole, that may not be true, but that whole accountability piece continues to be something that's quite political out there.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. I've only, like I said, I've only really gone to one private school, and it was Grand Canyon University, where we that's both of our alma maters, and I don't see the difference in that in a public school, but I also went to a public high school, so I'm not sure where those significant differences may be. But we're going to keep talking with Yavapai County School Superintendent Tim Carter. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we will talk about Governor Doug Ducey's push to get kids back into classrooms and the vaccine that now is available for teachers. More of that and a whole lot more right here on Countywide. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Who doesn't dream of home improvements? Perhaps your kitchen, the real living room. Maybe the bathroom, where you bookend your day. Langstrand Contracting is your one-stop shop from tear down to finishing touches. With 35 years of experience, Chris and his team will work with you to match your family's style and budget. Call Langstrand Contracting today for guidance in bringing your vision to life.
Award-winning Soundbites Grill is an entertainment restaurant located in Uptown Sedona at the Hyatt Pinion Point Resort. Open for lunch and dinner, featuring fresh fish, all-natural hand-cut beef, even a full vegan menu. Family-friendly, open 11:30 to 9, late dining on Friday and Saturday. Soundbites Grill has some of the best views of the Sedona Red Rocks. Offers world-class entertainment, food, fun, and music.
Hi, this is Greg at Verde Solar Power. You know, Arizona has lots of clean, renewable sunshine, and we want to help you take advantage of it with our quality solar installations, and we offer to beat any written offer on a residential solar electric system. So bring us your electric bill and let us show you how solar power will save you money. We're located conveniently here in the Verde Valley and are dedicated to helping the valley go solar. So remember, the energy solution comes up every morning.
Starting in the late 1920s, Grandpa Gettle and his brothers laid the groundwork for what would become a family legacy. Almost 100 years and 100 patents later, Gettle's High Desert Mechanical continues to raise the bar of quality heating, cooling, and plumbing products and services in the Verde Valley.
Call Gettle's High Desert Mechanical Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing at 567-2200 or online at GettlesHDM.com, providing solutions for your comfort. Don't settle, get Gettles.
Welcome back to Countywide. On today's show, we are speaking with Yavapai County School Superintendent Tim Carter. I am your host, Philip Catalfamo. In the first segment, we talked a little bit about sports in the winter season. We also talked a little bit about governing boards and the possible push or attempt to push for more private schools here in Arizona. But now we are shifting into, once again, COVID talk with Mr. Tim Carter. I know Governor Doug Ducey has been pushing relatively hard for kids to get back into classrooms. And of course, we all want to see kids back in class. But we're not sure if it's fully safe to do so right now. But where do you stand on that right now? I know the vaccine is available to teachers now, which is good. That will help. Doesn't make them immune to the virus, but does help with at least the school year. Where are we with that? And can you clear up anything the governor said so far about, taking funds away from schools if they don't have kids back in class?
Well, I'll try to do both of those things. So I think what Governor Ducey was trying to say, without actually saying it, is that it appears, and this is my view, that he is prioritizing the health of the Arizona economy as his number one concern. And I think most logical people would see that. I mean, if people don't have jobs, they're not paying the bills, that they're not taking care of their families, that could have huge, overwhelming issues that you could argue would far outweigh COVID as an issue. So I understand the economy is important.
Right.
So I think the point that he was trying to make in his State of the State when he said that school funding would be reduced if students were not in the classroom is a factual statement, but that's already happening. If you look at Arizona's funding formula, which goes back to 1966, by the way, it has two basic fundamentals: how many students are enrolled and how many students are in class every day. And that accounts for between 2/3 and 3/4 of the funding that every school district gets. So if you don't have kids enrolled, and if they're not attending, your funding formula is going to reduce the amount of money you're going to receive. So what he said is a statement of fact. He made it sound almost like this was a punishment. It was an incentive to...
An or else, essentially.
It sounded that way to a lot of people. But the reality is that is the way our funding formula is set up and has been for many, many years. So I think that people are starting to understand that hopefully that's what he was referring to, and we'll think that's probably the case. The issue with vaccinations is a much more positive thing to talk about. Our nursing staff, we have a cadre of nurses that work for the Yavapai County Education Service Agency that are basically itinerant and work with many of the schools in the county. And so we are taking care of the vaccinations. We had 4 different training or 4 different events last week. I know we did 190 on one day. I think that was our largest day for Prescott Unified School District. We're in Cottonwood Oak Creek School District today, I believe, and we were also there last week. So we are giving a lot of vaccinations, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Probably a third of our teachers are telling us that they're not planning on taking the shot. That's their choice. Even though we have reason to believe that schools could require teachers to do that, I don't know of any that's their plan. It's going to be a voluntary thing. In rural Arizona, we're using the Moderna vaccine as opposed to what's happening in Phoenix with Pfizer. But it seems to be moving along well, and people, I think, see it as a hopeful thing.
Optimism in 2021 should be the theme of 2021, as fear was 2020. But no fear when we're speaking with Mr. Tim Carter, Yavapai County School Superintendent. Tim, thank you very much for coming on. It is always great to speak with you. I want to thank you for watching and listening. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo, wishing you a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you again next time.